Max was no stranger to sleepless nights, but ever since that encounter with the otherworldly beings at the Banshee Brothel, sleep had become a distant memory. The hauntingly beautiful yet pitiful wails of those spectral women resonated in his mind, as if their spectral frequencies had become interwoven with his brainwaves, triggering a constant state of alert. The peculiar thing was not just the memory, but the fact that their echoes seemed to grow louder and more pronounced with each passing night. His former life, the regular late-night stakeouts, the grimy fight clubs, and the occasional pint at local watering holes, all had been replaced by this obsession. A reckless dive into the paranormal, fueled by a desperate need to bring peace to the souls trapped within the infamous Banshee Brothel. The city had always been shrouded in darkness, both figuratively and literally. But tonight, its darkness seemed deeper, more profound. It was as if the city itself were attempting to swallow the moon, to cloak itself in an eternal, unending night. The twisted structures, shadows thrown by the sickly yellow glow of the streetlights, all seemed longer and more ominous, like monstrous beasts stretching their skeletal frames. Against this haunting backdrop, Max found himself walking the city's maze-like streets, drawn towards the heart of the city by a melody, so compelling, it stirred his very soul. There was something in this song, a sad symphony woven with strands of desperation and torment that resonated with his own desolation. He couldn't help but follow it, as if the melody were a beacon, leading him towards the damned and the lost. As he moved through the labyrinthine cityscape, the echo of his footsteps, his lone companion, Max couldn't shake off the creeping sense of being watched, of eyes piercing through the veils of darkness, tracking his every movement. An aura of impending doom hung heavy in the air, yet Max moved on, a moth drawn to a flame. He was a man on a mission, gripped by a purpose stronger than fear. Unfazed by the unknown horrors that may lurk ahead, he soldiered on. He knew he was walking straight into the lion's den, but the melody echoing from the heart of the city was too powerful, too compelling. It was as if the banshees themselves were calling out to him, their chilling song pulling him deeper into the belly of the beast. Drenched in cold sweat, Max clenched his fists tighter, determination burning in his eyes. His footsteps echoed through the eerie silence of the night, each step drawing him closer to the spectral lure. The melody grew louder, its haunting strains echoing in his mind, pushing away the last vestiges of fear. As the infamous Banshee Brothel loomed into view, Max steeled himself for the ordeal to come. What awaited him inside was unknown, but he had come too far to back down now. He took one last look at the city swallowed in shadows, then resolutely stepped forward into the Banshee's lair, ready to face the symphony of nightmares that lay ahead. Upon stepping into the dimly lit interior of the brothel, Max was instantly hit with a wave of despair and desolation. This was not merely a place of ill repute, it was a monument to regret, a palace of lost souls. The air was thick with an insidious mixture of perfume and decay, a constant reminder of the tragic paradox that lay at the heart of this establishment. The contrast between the suggestive silks, velvets, and the chilling despair that hung in the air was uncanny and disconcerting. As he moved through the aged, winding corridors of the Banshee Brothel, the echoes of the spectral melody grew louder, morphing into an all-encompassing dirge. He was treading on a thin line between the living world and the spectral realm, a mortal drawn into a game of life and death played on an otherworldly stage. Suddenly, the haunting melody was cut short, replaced by a blood-curdling scream that tore through the silence. A scream so piercing, so saturated with terror and suffering, it sent shivers down his spine. It was a scream in the dark that seemed to reverberate from every direction, a cacophony of agony. Max broke into a run, his pulse racing as adrenaline coursed through his veins. The winding corridors of the brothel twisted and turned into a haunting maze as he raced towards the source of the chilling scream. He found himself drawn towards the basement, a place where the air grew colder, the darkness more profound, and the walls seemed to bleed sorrow. The door to the basement was aged and warped. Its once vibrant paint had faded, leaving a patchwork of discolored wood. It was strangely quiet beyond this threshold. The melody had ceased entirely, replaced by an oppressive silence that weighed heavy on Max's heart. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to turn back, but the desperate scream he'd heard earlier compelled him forward. Gritting his teeth, Max pushed the door open. The sight that met his eyes was nothing short of horrific. A vast chamber opened up before him, filled with spectral figures, their wails of despair muted in the pressing silence. They were the Banshees, a terrifying tableau of lost souls trapped in an eternal dance of despair. Each figure moved with a macabre grace, their mournful faces turned towards him, eyes glowing in eerie white in the darkness. At the center of this spectral ballet was a figure that stood out from the rest, a woman who radiated an ethereal beauty, her captivating gaze locked onto Max. As she opened her mouth, the haunting melody started once again, filling the chamber with its mournful strains. As Max stepped further into the chamber, the door behind him shut with a finality that made his heart sink. He was trapped, a mortal amidst a choir of spectral banshees. The screams he'd heard earlier were echoes of the past, a grim reminder of the fate that could befall him. It was then that he realized his journey into the heart of darkness was far from over. It had only just begun. As the spectral melody echoed through the chamber, a realization dawned upon Max. He was not merely a visitor in this haunted brothel. He was now a part of its twisted narrative, entangled in the dance of the lost. His heart pounded like a war drum in his chest, the fear tangible in the chilling air. But beneath the fear, a spark of determination ignited. Before him, the ghostly woman's eyes held a strange allure, their glow casting shadows that danced on her ghostly pallor. She was undoubtedly the queen of this terrifying spectacle, the orchestrator of the Banshee's sorrowful ballet. As she began to glide towards him, Max steeled himself. This was a fight, not just for his survival, but for every soul trapped within the Banshee Brothel's haunting walls. Max, fueled by adrenaline, desperation, and a newfound courage, charged at the Banshee Queen. The spectral figures around them seemed to fall back, creating a ghostly arena where he and the Queen stood as the only combatants. Her glowing eyes widened at the unexpected challenge, the ethereal melody faltering for a heartbeat before resuming its mournful cadence. Each attack he launched was met with a spectral defense. Her movements were unnaturally fast, her spectral form phasing in and out of existence as she danced around his attacks. The blows he managed to land seemed to pass right through her, ripples spreading across her form as if he had thrown a stone into a still pond. It was a strange, terrifying dance of their own. Max, the determined mortal, defying the supernatural terror that had held the brothel captive. And the Banshee Queen, a tragic figure wrapped in an aura of despair, fighting to maintain her spectral dominion. Despite his courage, Max was fighting a losing battle. He was exhausted, each breath drawing sharp and ragged, his muscles screaming in protest. The spectral melody around him seemed to grow louder, a chilling dirge that sought to pull him into the darkness. It was a song of despair, a lament for the lost. But Max was not lost. Not yet. In his darkest moment, as the Banshee Queen lunged for him, something sparked within Max. A memory of a chant he'd heard in his childhood, a ward against evil spirits. As if guided by an unseen force, the words came to him and he began to recite the chant, his voice loud and clear over the haunting melody. The effect was instantaneous. The Banshee Queen recoiled as if struck, her spectral form flickering violently. The chant seemed to weaken her, disrupting her ethereal existence. Seizing the moment, Max charged again, his voice never faltering as he continued the chant. With a final, desperate push, he reached out, and his hand made contact. The Banshee Queen let out a shriek, a terrifying sound that resonated within the chamber. Her form flickered one last time before shattering into 1,000 shards of spectral light. The melody ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. The spectral figures around him seemed to brighten, their forms shimmering before they, too, shattered into fragments of light. The oppressive darkness lifted, and for the first time since entering the brothel, Max felt a glimmer of hope. He had won. But his journey was far from over. The Banshee Brothel was free, but his quest to save the lost souls from the spectral curse was just beginning. The eerie silence was deafening in the wake of the spectral queen's defeat. Max's breath came in ragged gasps, his body protesting against the toll of the battle. Despite the pain, a victorious smile graced his worn features. Against all odds, he had triumphed over the Banshee Queen. However, this victory was only a drop of light in a sea of shadows. With the Queen's vanquishing, the brothel lost its ethereal glow, the spectral figures now gone, leaving only their echoes behind. The hallways seemed less ominous now, but the remnants of spectral despair clung to the air. The haunting melody was now absent, replaced with a silence so profound that it echoed in Max's ears. Max began his weary trek back through the haunted corridors, the walls now devoid of their ghostly inhabitants. The once flickering lights of the brothel were now steady, casting long shadows that danced and twisted in the corners of his eyes. The ornate furnishings no longer bore the spectral glow, but instead showed their true age, worn and weathered. The opulence that once defined the brothel had faded, leaving behind a hollow shell echoing with lost dreams. As he moved deeper into the brothel, he noticed a change. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. A haunting chill brushed against his skin, making him shiver. He stopped in his tracks, an unsettling feeling of being watched crawling up his spine. The silence was suddenly pierced by a faint, haunting melody, a spectral lullaby that whispered of despair and longing. Max's heart pounded against his ribcage as the realization dawned upon him. The queen's defeat had freed the brothel from her reign, but not from the spectral curse. Each room, each corner of the brothel still bore the imprint of the lost souls, their despair manifested in the haunting lullaby. He realized then the true weight of his mission. He had not just waged a war against the Banshee Queen, he had pledged himself to fight against a sea of lost souls, to save them from their eternal torment. In the silence of the brothel, Max made his resolution. He would not abandon this mission. He would not leave these lost souls to their despair. He was their beacon of hope, their chance at salvation. With renewed determination, Max continued his exploration. Each room told a different story, each spectral lullaby a testament to a life cut short. He found himself drawn to these melodies, each note pulling at his heartstrings. He didn't know how to help them, how to end their torment. But he was sure of one thing. He would not rest until he found a way. His journey was far from over, but he had taken the first step. The Banshee Brothel was quiet now, but Max knew that the silence was only a respite, a brief pause before the storm. The darkness was still teeming with untold horrors and tortured souls, their despair echoing through the spectral lullabies that continued to haunt the corners of the brothel. Max found his way to the brothel's bar, its once lively ambiance now drowned in the deafening silence. The bottles behind the counter, once filled with the finest spirits, were now just dusty relics of a bygone era. He slid onto a bar stool, feeling the weight of his mission pressing down on him. Yet within him, a flame of resolve flickered. He was determined to free these souls, to silence the spectral lullabies once and for all. As Max sat there, his eyes fell on an old piano nestled in the corner of the room. Its keys were worn, its surface dulled by age, yet there was an ethereal quality about it. Compelled by an unknown force, he walked over to the instrument, his fingers gently brushing over the keys. As he pressed down, a soft, melancholic note filled the room, resonating with the spectral lullabies that echoed in the brothel. Feeling a strange sense of calm, Max played the piano. He didn't play a song known to him, but the notes seemed to flow naturally, creating a melody that mirrored the lullabies of the lost souls. As he played, he felt an uncanny connection to the spectral beings, their despair, their longing, their relentless hope. The silence of the brothel was now filled with the melancholic notes of Max's piano, blending seamlessly with the spectral lullabies. For the first time, the brothel felt less like a haunted structure and more like a testament to lost lives, a beacon of hope in a sea of despair. Max continued to play until the first rays of dawn crept into the brothel. As the sun's warmth filled the room, the spectral lullabies began to fade, their notes growing softer, more distant. By the time the sun was high, the brothel was silent once again, but this time it was a silence devoid of despair. Max knew then this was just the beginning. His journey was far from over. He had only witnessed a glimpse of what lies ahead. The red-eyed demon was still out there, and with him, the true test of Max's resolve. As he ventured back into the daylight, he carried with him the echoes of the spectral lullabies, a reminder of his mission, his promise to the lost souls of the Banshee Brothel. As the brothel's door closed behind him, the silence was broken once again. But this time, it was not a haunting melody that filled the air, but the sound of hope, the promise of a new dawn. The journey ahead was fraught with danger and despair, but Max was ready. He had a mission, a purpose. He was not just Max anymore. He was the beacon of hope for the lost souls, the vanquisher of spectral despair. As Max stepped outside, the sun hit his face. the warmth a stark contrast to the chilling ordeal he had just faced inside the brothel. He squinted against the glare, taking a moment to let his eyes adjust, to let his mind process the daunting task that lay ahead. Max walked aimlessly through the streets of the city, lost in thought. Everywhere he looked, he saw reminders of the unearthly creatures that had, until now, remained hidden in the shadows. The spectral lullabies of the Banshee Brothel still echoed in his mind, a reminder of the battles he had yet to face. He continued to walk, the city's noise fading into a dull hum as he ventured deeper into his thoughts. Max's mind was racing with questions, with possibilities, but amidst the chaos, a clear resolution emerged. He had a purpose, a mission, to liberate the lost souls entrapped by the sinister spectral forces. As he passed by an old church, a sudden idea struck him, a place of faith, of spiritual protection. It could offer him the guidance he needed to understand and counter the supernatural forces he was up against. Max made his way to the church, pushing the heavy wooden doors open. The soft, comforting glow of the stained glass windows greeted him as he stepped inside, along with the tranquil aura that filled the space. Max moved to the front of the church, kneeling in front of the altar. He wasn't particularly religious, but at that moment he prayed. He prayed for strength, for guidance, for the courage to face the unknown horrors that awaited him. As he looked up at the cross above the altar, a sense of calm washed over him. It was as if a divine force was reassuring him, fortifying him for the battles to come. Filled with renewed determination, Max stood up, his gaze meeting the eyes of a priest who had been silently watching him. The priest approached him, a soft smile on his face. He offered Max a small, intricately carved amulet, an emblem of protection. The priest didn't ask any questions, and Max didn't provide any explanations. The exchange was silent, but the understanding was clear. Max thanked the priest, tucking the amulet into his pocket, a token of divine protection in the daunting battle against the supernatural. As Max stepped out of the church, the sun was setting, casting a warm orange glow over the city. But as the day surrendered to the night, Max knew what awaited him. The spectral forces thrived in the shadows, but Max was ready. With the memory of the spectral lullabies, a newfound purpose, and a divine token of protection, he was ready to face the night, ready to wage a war against the darkness. As Max headed towards the heart of the city, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. It was as if the city itself was bracing for the upcoming battle, as if the darkness was waiting, eager to face its new adversary. But amidst the anticipation and fear, Max was resolute. He had made a promise to the lost souls of the Banshee Brothel, a promise he intended to keep. The night was about to descend, and with it, the reign of the spectral forces. But Max was ready to bring a new dawn, a dawn that promised liberation and hope. The night was coming, and Max was ready to fight. Deep into the eerie night, the moonscape lighting Max's way, the somber stillness was broken by a low, seductive hum. It was a sound that vibrated through the very marrow of his bones, pulling him closer with its siren call. He had come face to face with her, the Banshee Queen. Her hair was a living cascade of shadows dancing in the cold, silvery moonlight. Her eyes, once the color of pure malice, now gleamed with a tragic softness. Her body, once a chilling spectral blue, was now radiating a warm golden glow. She looked like a goddess, a celestial entity that had fallen from the cosmos. The Banshee Queen was surrendering, not out of fear or weakness, but as a testament to her newfound faith in Max. He could see it clearly. It was her way of yielding to the inevitable, her method of dealing with the torment she had lived with for centuries. The Banshee Queen extended her hand, and Max, hesitant at first, found the courage to take it. In her palm, he could see a ring, not just an ordinary ring, but a symbol of power, authority, and promise. As he took the ring, he felt a surge of energy, the feeling of centuries-old powers bestowed upon him, intertwined with the Banshee Queen's essence. The Queen whispered in a voice that echoed with despair and relief, "You hold in your hands the power to call upon me and my kin. Use it wisely, human." Max looked down at the ring, a heavy promise in such a small object. He looked back up to her, his eyes meeting hers. The wind picked up, carrying with it the chilling cries of the remaining banshees. But amidst all that, the Queen stood calm and unflinching. "You're free now," Max whispered. "No, we are both free," she corrected. And before Max could react, the Queen leaned in, pressing her lips to his. It was a kiss imbued with centuries of longing and unfulfilled desires. It was a farewell, an acknowledgement, a promise of better days to come. The haunting melody of the banshees ceased, replaced with a harmonious chorus. Max had broken the curse, saved himself, saved the city, and, in an unexpected twist of fate, saved the Banshee Queen and her spectral daughters. As he broke away from the kiss, Max looked upon the city under the full moon's gaze. A sense of peace washed over him, marking an end of the nightmare. But he knew it wasn't the end of his story. With the ring in his possession, it was just the beginning. Hey everyone, welcome to our channel. We're so excited to have you here and share our content with you. If you're new here, make sure to click that subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see you in the next video.